They painted a 3-month-old German Shepherd puppy bright blue and left her to dry behind a warehouse in Chicago, Illinois. She didn't bark. She didn't run. She just sat there tied to a rusted pipe with a rough rope wrapped around her neck 4 times, blue against a greasy gray wall like somebody's joke that never got posted. Half her coat was stiff and cracking from the paint. The other half was trying to breathe. And the worst part wasn't the color. It was the silence. That kind of silence means a young puppy already knows people hurt. I walked in through the alley, forklifts humming in the distance, morning cold pushing street fog around the dumpsters. Up close, I could see paint on her eyelids and under the blue, a red angry skin where it had burned. This wasn't a spill. This was staged for laughs, for views, for nothing. I reached for the knot, and only then did she make a sound. A tiny broken inhale, like she was begging me not to point a phone at her again. Someone had stood right where I was standing and decided a living pup was content. I heard voices at the far end of the alley, young, careless, moving our way. I looked at the puppy and she looked back, shaking, but not fighting me. I knew if I left her there 10 more minutes, she'd become somebody's joke again. No living puppy sits that still when you take the rope off. Not a 3-month-old, not a rescued puppy. I crouched so I wasn't towering over her and held my hand out, palm down, talking low the way you talk to something that's already been disappointed by people. She didn't flinch. She didn't scoot back. She just watched me with those big, dark Chicago warehouse eyes, shaking in tiny waves, like her body still remembered the cold paint. The rope was real, not some party prop. Rough hardware store stuff wrapped around her neck 4 times, pulled tight so it flattened the blue against her skin. When I slid my fingers under it, I felt where it had rubbed her raw. That's when I knew for sure whoever did this wanted her to stay there. This wasn't someone losing a dog. This was someone putting a dog on pause. My name's Louis. I volunteer with a local rescue on the south side. I've pulled dogs out of basement and out from under porches, but I haven't seen anyone paint a little pup and leave her to dry like trash. I worked the knots slow so I wouldn't scrape the burned spots. As the rope loosened, the blue cracked, and I could see angry pink underneath. You don't wash that in an alley. You don't scrub that with cold water from a hose. You warm her up. You go gentle. You let her know human hands don't always hurt. I slid my arm under her chest to lift. That was the first time she made a sound. Not a bark, not even a whine. Just this thin, rusty exhale like she was telling me, "Please don't make it hurt again. Please don't film me." Down the alley, the boys' voices got closer, laughing about nothing. I wasn't going to let them turn her into content twice. I couldn't clean her out there by the dumpsters, and I knew only one place where nobody would ask why a blue puppy was bleeding paint. Our rescue is used to broken dogs, but never a blue one. I carried the German Shepherd puppy into the intake room, and the whole place just paused. You know it's bad when people who work with cruelty cases every day go quiet. Half of her was still that dry, cracking blue. The other half was plain, scared Chicago gray. She smelled like paint and metal and alley cold, not like a 3-month-old abandoned puppy should smell. "Someone did this on purpose," Marissa said, already rolling up her sleeves. We laid her on a warm towel. No sudden moves, no loud voices, warm water, not hot circles, not scrubbing. The first rinse took the shine off the blue, and that's when we saw it. Under the paint, her skin was pink, angry, in some places almost blistered, like whatever they used wasn't meant for fur at all. If it was for a video, one of the girls muttered, they could have used anything. Meaning, they didn't care what it did to her as long as it looked funny. She didn't fight us. That was the part that bothered me. A normal puppy squirms. A normal puppy cries. She lay there shaking, eyes tracking every hand like she was waiting for the next bad thing. I didn't give her a name. Not yet. First we pull her out of the hole. Then we call her something. Marissa's phone buzzed. She looked at it, looked at the dog, then turned the screen to me. Short clip, shaky, vertical, blue puppy, male voices laughing off camera. I wanted to tell myself it wasn't her. But Chicago isn't that big when it comes to cruelty. She didn't bark, and dogs in our rescue always bark. We put her in the isolation room so the others wouldn't crowd her. Just a crate, a heat lamp, clean blankets, and a metal bowl. A 3-month-old German Shepherd puppy is supposed to trip over herself to get to food, to hands, to anything that smells safe. This young dog just sat there, shoulders rounded, eyes low, like she was trying to become smaller than the blue on her fur. I sat on the floor across from her so she didn't have to look up. Concrete was cold even through my jeans. I started talking. Nothing special, just Chicago small talk for dogs. You're safe now. Nobody's laughing. Nobody's filming. Every time I leaned in a little, she didn't pull away from me. She pulled her eyes away from me. That was the tell. She wasn't scared of people. She was scared of attention. Somebody didn't just hurt her. Somebody made her the center of a joke. I kept seeing that video in my head, the one from the phone. Hands holding her, voices laughing, camera too close. That's when it hit me. They painted her so she wouldn't be a someone. They painted her so she'd be a thing. Marissa opened the door a crack and whispered so we wouldn't startle her. The paint's starting to irritate the spots on her neck, she said. If it keeps reacting, we'll have to clip some of it and treat the burn. It's going to sting. I looked at the puppy and she looked right past me. Slow blink, no complaint. Like she thought this was just how life goes now. Pain, hands, silence. I didn't want her to connect human touch with pain again. But we didn't have a choice. When we started to wash the pain off, she tried to bite for the first time. Not a real attack. Just that desperate little snap a shepherd pup does. When pain finally catches up, we decided to take off what would come off with warm water and a mild cleanser, before we shaved anything. No scrubbing, no cold, no harsh smell, just slow circles, towels already warm from the dryer, 3 grown adults moving like we were handling glass. At first she just trembled and let it happen. But the second Marissa's fingers slid over the thickest blue on her shoulder, the puppy jerked her head and opened her mouth like, "Stop, stop, stop." That was good. That was a living reaction. A dog that defends herself is a dog that still thinks she's worth defending. Up close, it looked worse. The paint had dried in the folds of her neck where the rope had pressed it in. Underneath was red, patchy, irritated like a chemical had sat there too long. Whoever poured it on her didn't rinse her. They just tied her and walked away. Not because they had to, because it would be funnier. I felt that old grown man anger crawl up my throat. This wasn't somebody in crisis who couldn't keep a dog. This was somebody who wanted to watch a 3-month-old German Shepherd puppy struggle and call it content. We got the upper layer off and called Dr. Patel in. He put on gloves, touched the raw spots with the back of his fingers so he wouldn't scrape her. "She's lucky it didn't hit her eyes," he said. Then he pressed lightly under her jaw, and she whined again, tired now, like she didn't have room for more pain. He looked at me, not at the camera, not at the blue. "If whatever they used got in her mouth when she was licking, it won't hit right away," he said. "It'll hit later. If reagents got inside, it's going to be worse at night." So I stayed. At night, dogs show either fear or gratitude. She showed nothing. I grabbed the old folding chair we keep in the isolation hall and set it right in front of her crate. The rescue was quiet. Chicago quiet. When the EL tracks are far enough away and the warehouse heaters talk louder than people, she lay on the blanket the way a furry pup shouldn't ever lie. Too still, too polite, too used to waiting for the next bad thing. Her breathing was shallow but even. No whine, no complaining, just that slow, taught myself to endure rhythm. I leaned my elbows on my knees and said it out loud so it would exist for her. "You're not a thing. You're not content. They don't get to decide what you are." She flicked an eye at me, then away. That little look away again, not from men, from attention. Somebody had shoved a phone in her face and laughed, and her 3-month-old brain filed it under attention hurts. I remembered being a kid and having a German Shepherd in our yard. Good dog once the boys on the block tried to paint his tail for a laugh. I still remember my father's voice that day. Heavy, disappointed, not loud. "Cruelty isn't always blood," he said. "Sometimes it's a joke." My phone buzzed on the chair. Marissa sent a link. "No doubt it's her," she wrote. I opened it and wished I hadn't. Shaky hands, cold alley. Blue paint getting poured over a small dog that couldn't even reach the person doing it. Male laughter. "She'll go viral," one of them said like they were crowning her. I looked back at the crate. Same half-blue face, same rope marks, same silence. Hours dragged. I dozed and woke up every few minutes to check her sides. Toward morning, I noticed it. The skin around her muzzle just a little puffier. Her lips not lying flat. Not dramatic, but not nothing. If that swelling moved in instead of out, breathing would get harder. I didn't let her become a meme. Morning light in Chicago is cruel on warehouse windows. It shows every dent, every stain, every bad decision. It also showed that our rescued puppy was still here, and still breathing even with the little puff around her muzzle. She was half blue, half shaved, pink in patches where the paint had burned and somehow still gentle. I told the girls at the front, "We're posting her. Not the laughing video, not the humiliation. We post the truth. This is what she looks like now." I said, "This is what people do to dogs. This is what we do back." We spread a clean blanket, sat her up slow so she wouldn't panic. And Marissa snapped 2 pictures. No filters, no funny stickers, no music. Just a small dog in Chicago, Illinois, who should have been playing in a yard instead of healing in a rescue. And something changed when the camera was ours, not theirs. She looked at me, not past me, not below me, right at me. For the first time since I found her behind that warehouse, this young dog held eye contact. That's almost trust. That's a dog saying, "Okay, maybe." It wasn't big, but it was real. We captioned it like we always do. Painted an abandoned puppy brought to our rescue this morning. Chemical irritation. Rope burns. About 3 months old. We're treating her. She's safe now. If you want to help, reach out. We hit post. 5 minutes later, the comments started. What happened to her? How could someone do this? Is she available later? I can donate supplies. One woman wrote, "You will give her a name, right? You can't just wash that color away." I stared at that comment longer than I should have because she was right. That color wasn't just paint anymore. It was part of her story. But I didn't name dogs on day 1. Not when I wasn't sure if the night had done damage I couldn't see yet. Not when swelling could still move the wrong way. You don't give a name until you know she's staying. It always gets worse right after you finally exhale. By evening, she slowed down in a way that wasn't just tired, breathing a notch faster, eyelids heavier, the kind of heat you feel with your palm an inch off the fur. Marissa checked her temp and pressed her lips together like she didn't want to say the number out loud. Dr. Patel came back in. Quiet shoes, quiet eyes. "This is likely the substance," he said. "We warned you it could hit late." We dimmed the lights and let the room settle. I could hear the warehouse heaters cycling and the soft click of the oxygen unit we keep in the corner for nights like this. She lay on her side, small as a folded towel, ribs moving just a little too quick for comfort. I put 2 fingers under her paws so she'd know I was there. Not asking for anything. No phones, no photos, just a man and a hurt puppy, and a room that smelled like soap and metal. "If you make it through this night," I told her, "no one gets to call you trash again." My voice sounded older than I felt. She blinked at me once and went back inside her quiet. Dr. Patel listened to her chest, head tilted, counting silently. "Not terrible," he said, "but not where I want it." He pointed to the oxygen. "Just in case we need to support her, we'll keep it close. Monitor every half hour. No stress, fluid slow." I watched the clock because watching her was harder. 9:30, 10, 10:30. Each time I leaned in, the rise and fall of her ribs felt like a coin toss. Sometimes it evened. Sometimes it stuttered and made my own lungs lose the beat. I thought about the boys in that video and how they laughed like there was no morning after. There's always a morning after. Sometimes you have to fight to reach it. Around midnight, she swallowed hard and coughed once. A dry little sound that made all of us look up at the same time. Patel adjusted the line and nodded at me. "Stay close," he said. "If swelling tracks inward, she'll need help to breathe." I told the team to go home. I'd take the first stretch in the chair. She was not a meme. She was not a teaching moment. She was my little companion for the night, and I wasn't moving. At 1 a.m., her breathing found a slower rhythm, and I let my eyes drop for a minute. At 1:10, it picked up again, and the room felt too small to hold air. I stood, hand on the crate, counting with her until the count felt human again. If the swelling moved the wrong way, the oxygen would have to. I stayed a second time. She just opened her eyes and looked at me like she was choosing. Morning wasn't kind, but it was honest. The room smelled like clean towels, and the faint, sweet metal breath dogs get after a long night. Her chest moved slower. Her eyes were less glass and more question. I sat the way I had sat all night, elbows on knees, and waited for her to decide if I existed. She shifted her head an inch toward my voice. That was it. No wag, no push, just a small, stubborn tilt that said, "I'm thinking." I let the silence do the talking. Silence had been her enemy today. I wanted it to work for us. "You made it," I said. "You did the hard part." I touched 2 fingers to the edge of her cheek where the blue met the shaved pink. She flinched, then didn't. That inch of trust felt louder than any bark. I looked at what was left of the paint. That stubborn ocean line across a 3-month-old German Shepherd puppy who never asked to be a lesson. Names matter. Names are promises. "You're Indigo," I told her, "not because they painted you, because you outlived the paint." I waited for regret to hit me. It didn't. Her eyes did a small soften like a curtain letting in a fraction more light. When Marissa set the bowl down, Indigo sniffed and took one careful mouthful, then another, like she was learning the rules of eating again. Between bites, she lifted her nose toward my hand, and I let her find me. No grab, no hurry. Her breath was warm against my knuckles. And for a second I forgot the video, the rope, the alley. We moved slow, a few sips of water, a few strokes on the side that wasn't raw. She blinked longer blinks and laid her chin on the towel the way a dog does when the world finally stops spinning. Marissa smiled with the tired kind of smile rescues learn. "She's turning a corner," she said. I nodded but didn't move my hand. The post from last night didn't sleep. By mid-morning, the front desk started flooding. Donations, messages, a woman from the north side offering to foster, a family in Pilsen asking if they could visit after school, a gentleman who said he had experience with shy dogs and would drive wherever. Blue puppy in Chicago. Indigo in Chicago. People were saying her name like it belonged. I should have been relieved. Instead, I counted her breaths and thought about doors and cars and new hands. Indigo wasn't a before and after picture. She was a decision you made every hour. Marissa leaned in the doorway with her phone. "You're trending," she said. "Offers are coming in." I looked at Indigo and she looked back, not past me, not through me, but at me like we were finally in the same sentence. I already knew I wasn't handing her to just anyone. She stood up on her own, and it felt like a spit in the face of the ones who laughed. No coaxing, no hands under her chest. Just a quiet decision happening in the space between 2 breaths. Indigo gathered herself, planted those small back feet like she finally trusted the floor, and uncurled. One step, another, a third. Careful and brave, like each inch of linoleum was a test she meant to pass. The shaved patches were still pink and tender. The blue that wouldn't wash out had faded to a softer armor, a band of color across her shoulder that looked less like a prank and more like a banner. She moved with that new banner on her like it belonged to a survivor, not a victim. I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was clenched since the alley. She paused beside the crate and looked at me for permission she didn't actually need. I didn't say a word. I just let the air be easy and pointed my eyes down the hall like, "Go on. It's yours." Indigo took it. She walked 3 more paces and sat a little crooked, tired but not broken. I heard my father's old line in my head again, and I didn't fight it this time. "You wanted to humiliate a puppy. You built a survivor." Marissa's breath caught and then turned into a laugh. She swallowed so it wouldn't scare the brave pup across the tiles. Dr. Patel leaned in the doorway with that professional nearly smile he saves for days that turn. No one clapped. No one reached for a phone. We just stood still and let the moment put itself back together. Indigo leaned forward and touched her nose to my knee like a signature at the bottom of a contract. "Okay," she seemed to say. "We're doing this." Her tail moved once, small, an apology for arriving so late to her own life. The front desk bell pinged and then pinged again. Marissa called out that someone had driven over after seeing last night's post and wanted to meet the blue dog from Chicago. Another message popped on the screen from a couple in Logan Square, then a woman on the south side, then a dad who said his kid had been following her story since morning. I didn't answer right away. I wanted the world to see her like I was seeing her now. Not blue, not broken, but strong, and I already knew I wasn't handing her to just anyone. I always thought I wouldn't bring home dogs from the rescue until I met the one they painted. I signed the foster form with a hand that didn't feel like mine, and carried her to the truck like a promise I was finally ready to keep. She rode curled on the passenger seat, a small blue and rose moon in a nest of towels, watching the world from the safe corner where seat meets door. No crying, Jew. She looked up at me like, "Is this allowed?" And I told her yes, without words. By evening, she had chosen a spot under the coffee table where she could see both doors. I lay on the floor so I wasn't taller than her life. She inched forward until her head found the crook of my elbow and stayed there, all warm breath and trust she hadn't budgeted for. I've seen a lot of endings in this work. This was the quiet kind people miss when they expect a parade. A loyal puppy doesn't announce herself. She just arrives and stays. I tried the mirror again with the lights softer and no phone in sight. Indigo looked from the dog in the glass to me and back, then did something small and enormous. She wagged once and didn't startle at the motion. Her body was learning her again. The messages kept pouring in. Good people, good intentions, names and neighborhoods and offers. I read them out loud so she could hear herself wanted. She drifted to sleep between syllables, a blue shoulder rising and falling against my sleeve. Tomorrow I'll tell people why this story matters, because if someone had seen that video earlier, she would never have been tied in that alley. You ask why I'm showing this. Because what happened to her wasn't just cruelty. It was public cruelty. A joke with an audience and a camera, and a plan to turn a living dog into views. I want you to see what the camera didn't show. The quiet after the laughing. The rope marks that don't trend. The way a rescued puppy learns to sleep without flinching. The way a tail decides 1 inch at a time that the world might be safe again. I want you to see what fixed her. Not one person, not one post. A chain of ordinary hands doing ordinary work until it becomes something holy. Warm water, soft towels, a room that smells like soap, and second chances. People who stayed when staying wasn't fun. This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important non-profit rescue groups really are. We don't sell miracles. We count breaths. We lift heads. We wait through the parts no one films, so the parts you love are possible. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. It's making sure the bowl is clean, and the voice is gentle, and the door is closed when the world is too loud. It's promising a dog that you will not turn her pain into content. It's promising yourself that you will not look away. If someone had seen that first video sooner, maybe she never would have been tied in that alley. So share this one. Share it because somewhere there is another small dog painted into a joke, and she needs a person to ruin the punchline. Share it because this is how strangers become a safety net. Thank you for watching her become herself. Thank you for helping us turn blue into brave. Join our YouTube family, The Animals 2.0. Be their voice. Be their hope.